Hey team, it's Jen, coming to you here at the top of week 5 as we embark on reading Jean Rice's Wide Sargasso Sea, which is a dynamic novel that I'm sure is going to inspire a lot of controversial discussion in the forums. As we go into week 5, I'd like to see you approaching the forums much in the way that you have been for the past couple forums in terms of really putting out all of the ideas that come to your mind as you read this text and interacting to your heart's delight. I'm very pleased with the way that the discussion forums have been going. So I wanted to thank you for your hard work and your contributions. There are a couple students, as there always are, who think that they can really slide by on just doing the minimum requirements and getting an A for that. I just want to reiterate very quickly that I am not the kind of instructor, at least for graduate courses, that awards an A for doing minimum work. I do want to see that as a graduate student, you're pushing yourself really hard and that you're standing out among your peers as somebody who's extremely passionate and very invested in the process that we advocate here in our English major. This idea of discussing and unpacking ideas, this idea of not being afraid to tackle the text from new and interesting perspectives. So if you are a student here at week 5 who has been playing it safe and sliding by on the skin of your teeth with doing just the minimal requirements, I want to beseech you to please push yourself a little harder. Make yourself a real standout as a graduate student, because as a graduate student versus an undergraduate student, you have the opportunity to really let your passion shine, to really get involved in the course in a way that is self-fulfilling. And that's what I want you to do. And that means that you have to be present and you have to be very active and you have to be sharp. So I'm hoping that for those very few students who need a little bit of a nudge, I hope that I can give you that nudge here at the beginning of week 5. Coming up in week 5, though, we have something pretty daunting on the table, and that is our first draft, our rough draft for our final response, for our final research paper, our big publishable project. So I want to give you some pointers, some tips about how you can get this draft done in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming or premature. Drafts are very, very important in this process. The first draft, it ought to be as complete as it can be for you. Now, the rough draft is going to take a variety of forms for every student in this course. Some of you, I already know, already have a very clear context. You have a couple theoretical lenses in mind, and you have already done the reading of the text, some unpacking of the text. We've already talked possibly during office hours about your approach. And I know that many of you in this course feel like you're ready to commit something to paper in terms of a rough draft. Others of you in this course are still in the initial kind of brainstorming phase, and a few of you, I'm sure, are still at that phase where you're not even quite sure what the research paper is supposed to do. If you are a student who is among the latter of the kind of student that I mentioned, please be aggressive. Get a hold of me. We can Skype it out. Get a hold of your peers in the workshop, ask them for advice. Make sure that you are on top of it. It is your job to be on top of this. So make sure that you are getting the job done. Many of us are in that middle phase where we're still kind of sorting things out. We're still brainstorming. The rough draft can serve a number of functions. For us who find ourselves in that middle range, I think most of us do find ourselves there, the rough draft can focus as an exploration, an investigation, an experiment into what your paper might be. And I encourage the rough draft to function in this way because I think it's very useful. You can use your rough draft as a way to think about which major ideas you're interested in unpacking, which arguments you want to lay on the table, and how you're going to go about supporting those arguments with evidence from the text, and also ways that you're going to conform to the various theoretical lenses that you may be employing in your essay. You can use whatever format works for you in terms of rough draft writing. I personally have learned that for myself, whenever I sit down to write a rough draft, I will start with a kind of medley, I guess, of approaches that include full paragraphs to bullet points to, highlighted quotes that I want to insert to questions that I want to ask, that I want to probe deeper into. So my rough drafts tend to be a kind of tends to offer a variety of different approaches because for me, just writing an outline or just writing a full draft has never really quite worked out. So I want to encourage you to experiment a bit with how you're going to rough draft. Find a way that works for you. Some of you as graduate students already have a tried and true way of writing your rough drafts that works, while others of you are still unsure about what your style is and what is most conducive for you to producing the best work. Now, I will say this about the rough draft. The more that you give us to consider, the better feedback you will get. So, for example, if you just write out a bullet point outline that's very vague, unclear, not a lot of unpacking or explanation is going on, there's really not a whole lot of feedback I or your peers can give you because we can't enter into your minds. You can't ask us to imagine what your paper is going to be. You need to feed us that image as well as you can at this point. If you are a student who is going to do the minimum work, you're probably going to give that vague bullet pointed outline that nobody can really interact with. And if you do this, you do need to be prepared to get the kind of response that that type of submission asks for. And that is a very vague response that's uninvolved. It's nonchalant. There's not a whole lot that we can do with it. I encourage you at the end of week 5 to submit a rough draft that really articulates where you truly are in your process. Take the time to go into the text, even if you haven't read it yet, and to find some salient quotes, find some passages, read the Schmoop overview, read the Wikipedia, read a couple articles in Shapiro about your text if you haven't read the novel yet. Get a clear sense about where you might go and how you might go there. What I want to see in your rough draft is I want to see specificity. If you are writing about vague things like, I'm going to write about the topic of love in Love in the Time of Cholera, that's not going to cut it. I need something extremely, just so specific that you just can't believe that you've been this specific. So I need to see that. That is the most important thing I'm going to be looking for, is that you have a context. The next thing I'm going to be looking for is that you have an argument. It doesn't have to be yet extremely sophisticated, but I want to see that you are, my God, arguing something. And it's got to be hot. Whatever it is, it's got to be controversial. Something that people can disagree with, something that people are going to argue with you about, something that people need to understand about this text, about your context. Make an argument. And if you're very sophisticated, then you're going to show me more than that. You're going to show me counter argument, stakes. You're going to show me a line of inquiry where you develop a number of arguments that are related. You're going to show me fully developed paragraphs. You're going to show me a sexy as hell introduction. You're going to show me a inventive, creative, functional conclusion, like the kind that I offer you in my overview of conclusions in the course resources. So take this opportunity at the beginning of week 5 to poll your peers about your rough draft, to come to office hours and chat with me about approaches that you can take for your rough draft. utilize the resources that you have. Also in week 5, as a side note, I do want you to start thinking as well about writing your next response paper, which is due at the end of week 6 on Wide Sargasso Sea. As we read Wide Sargasso Sea and we discuss it, use the discussion forum to pose contexts that you might want to unpack for response paper 3. I want to see you coming up with new and interesting and personal contexts, essay ideas in the discussion forums this week on Jean Rice's novel. I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope that you are enjoying this course as much as I am. Please let me know how the course is going for you. If you're struggling, if you're enjoying certain aspects, I like to know these things, and the earlier the better, because that gives me a chance to modify my approach and to reconsider some things that I could do, that we all could do, to make this a more fruitful experience for everybody. So I want to thank you for your contribution so far, and I want to encourage you to always contribute more. That's just the nature of what we do. We give and we give and we give, and we push and push and we push. So keep on doing that. I'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.